Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Idiots Talk Aquariums Podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. We really appreciate the support. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and press the notification button and all those good things that you're supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, without dragging this on too much, let's get on to what have you guys been up to? What's been happening in your fish rooms of late? Any exciting stuff that you can't wait to tell all the lovely people listening and all Cam's imaginary listeners?
Yes, he did. My fish room was going really well. I was sorting everything out and fixed all the lights and fixed all the leaks. And then I killed a whole tank of my trophies, so I'm gutted now. So
How'd you do that?
Left the hose running and went to work, and they froze to death. So I think it was final count about 28 trophies bishops.
Damn.
So that's a lot of they were my favourite fish too. I love them, so I was pretty gutted to lose all them, and I'd graded them out too to about 2 males and the rest females. So it was a really big colony. Raised a bunch up, so yeah, that was pretty gutting. It's taken a while to get back out into the fish room and actually put some fish in that tank and get them moving again. But we're going to have some pink dragon's bloods breeding. It's always gutting when you go in there and they're all dead and you're like, you can't do anything. You're like,
and it's just like a stupid mistake. It's like different to, if a tank crashes or like something goes on a tear or whatever, that's one thing. But mistakes like that is just so sad.
Something out of your control, then all good, but that was completely my control. And
yeah, exactly.
I broke the rule that I've had since I set up the fish room, that when I've got that tap running, I've got my hand sitting on the thing. That was always my rule. Yeah. So I need to actually look at figuring out how to put a timer in line with that one so that I can just flick it on to like 10 minutes, half an hour or whatever, and then forget about it. So it doesn't happen again.
When you walk into your fish room, you just know, you can sense that something's not right as well.
Yeah.
I bet you open your door and you're like, oh shit, something's not going on right here.
Yeah, it felt a bit funny. And then that tank was obviously condensed, like it was had moisture all over it because it got so cold and the rest of the room was so warm. Yeah. And I just looked in and saw all the bodies on the bottom. So that was pretty gutting. Also lost some nice Calvis in there too that I just picked up a female for, so that was also annoying. Literally the same day found a female and picked it up and then got home to find the males dead. So it's like,
well, at least you don't have to find a female now.
Well, yeah. Keep her alive until a male shows up. But yeah, I mean, yeah. It's shitty times. But all the other fish I've moved around are looking really good. The Demasoni are looking awesome in their own tank, which is cool. And yeah, pink dragon's bloods have now got their own tank, so we can breed some pink dragon's bloods for Cam. Yay!
Sounds like fun. Everyone always loves a good dragon's blood, so that's
what you keep telling me. So that's what you keep telling me. So yeah. And a mate of mine, I sold a mate of mine a bunch of the bishops, and he's just going to breed some more for me at some stage, and I'll get some back. So we will rebuild.
Yeah, and prevent it happening again.
Yeah, that's the key thing. I need to figure out some sort of timer system so that I don't, because I was tired, I was in a hurry, I was stressed out, so everything was against me. But I've just been pumping a little bit of fresh water in every day into the trophies tanks because I think my water quality hasn't been good enough for them. So I've been pumping a little bit of water in every day, and they pumped a lot of water in there and didn't like it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The worst thing is if it had been summer, it probably wouldn't have been as much of a disaster.
Yeah, because the water coming out wouldn't have been as cold, probably.
Yeah, you might have been able to save it and maybe only lost one or two or nothing at all, but it's part and parcel of fun of winter.
It is, yeah. And it's just another thing. We're making sure we've got some redundancies and stuff in place, which I did not for that system. So yeah.
Oh well, that's depressing. So what?
move on. Yay.
Have you had anything slightly nicer happening to you, Cam?
I have. Hold on. First of all, I'd like to draw attention to Ryan because he doesn't have anything cool under his name like he normally does. I'm really disappointed in you. Do better next time.
I wasn't feeling that inspired this morning. No. I woke up at 4:30, but I'm still not feeling that inspired yet. I'm like, something will come to me maybe.
Need caffeine. Anyway, so I've finished setting up my expedition to the in-store quarantine. So that pretty much got done. And then the other racks that were sitting in the corner got set up the way that I'm sort of planning to do the rest of the back room. So it's kind of beginning to take a bit of shape, or at least give me an idea of how it's going to look. So that's what I've been doing for the last week. I've got to drill some more holes, drop some more air lines, and get all that rocking and rolling. But of the 20 that we've set up, I think 7 or 8 of them are ready to go with the filters from the last tank. So they're all cycled and everything's ready to go. So just need to chuck some heaters in there, and then we can start moving some fish in and moving some fish around again.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
I'm leaving tanks now, eh?
Yeah, it's 123 running at this stage.
Nice. That's
Jesus
good.
Christ.
Yeah. So
I've got like 40.
Those are schoolboy numbers, buddy. Get up.
It's like those 40 is like probably too much because there's so many tanks sitting around that don't really do much. So I'm like, ugh.
So the top row of the new rack that we put in after multiple debates with you guys, got to look at doing some sort of an experiment with cycled media and cycle and stability and prawn, all that kind of scenario. So over the upcoming weeks, I'll finalise exactly what we're going to do for that, and we'll do a few tests and see what comes of that.
It'll be very interesting to see what the outcome of that is. Yeah.
So I've specifically used, obviously, brand new tanks, brand new airlines, and brand new sponge filters. So there's nothing that at all could be adjusting anything there. So it'd be interesting to see that.
We maybe need a rule that we're not allowed to mention the S word until this little science experiment reaches its conclusion.
No, because it's way more fun using stability because you rack up, and I find that hilarious.
Fair enough.
I think that if it's proven that stability actually works, I'm out.
You're out.
I got nothing. To. So it's all or nothing.
Yeah, we'll have to think of something, some sort of
punishment.
I don't know, something riding on it more than just being right. Yeah. Like a bet, but not with money, with something more involved for the listeners.
Yeah,
a punishment or something.
The best or the hardest thing we'll do is trying to get the guidelines right. So like.
Yeah.
It's sort of even
how do you test it?
And just trying to work out what it actually is that we're trying to prove or disprove or work through, and getting them rock solid will be the.
And what are we determining as cycled?
Correct.
And what is, because like you're talking about the prawn method, which I know you like, and I think is absolutely crazy. But it's hard to compare that to dropping a certain measured amount of ammonia in every day, right? Because that produces a random amount of ammonia. So again, it's going to have to be you drop it in and then you use that and drop that ammonia. Once the ammonia drops off, you take it out and you drop so much ammonia in and it processes it within so much period of time, and you can say that it's cycled or something. You know,
but that'll be the hardest part, is making sure those guidelines are as accurate as possible, but also work for everything that needs to be worked for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like our little experiment we did with the poly boxes, where we probably did the experiment completely wrong.
Yeah, probably.
Like, chuck them outside in the freezing cold when they would actually be in a courier depot.
Yeah,
which is
that's
not like
fun.
2
Not
degrees.
totally freezing.
So,
yeah.
so we probably need to define our parameters a little bit better before we go and play scientist.
Yeah,
We should consult an actual scientist or something, I reckon. There's heaps of scientists that I'm sure will be listening. So if you are, hit us up and you can tell us how wrong we are.
Well,
Yeah,
I just happened to be speaking to someone from CChem fairly soon on my Fanatics Friday coffee date, so maybe I'll try and find out what their guidelines are for their stability product testing and see if we can mimic that. Did that work?
I'm gonna let that one slide with no jokes.
Yeah,
That is like
either.
the lowest hanging fruit I've ever seen in my life. But I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bite.
You do you, my bro, and I will just. We'll move on to the next
The biggest
thing.
The biggest problem we've got with this testing is the fact that Cam's doing it. So I don't know if he's ever going to admit if the truth if it comes out.
You know what? I was quite happy to allow that to slide as well until you added that caveat. I'm not the most scientific, and I have been known to half-ass a lot of stuff and stop things halfway through. So I could have accepted that until you were talking about the truth. That's not okay, man. That's not okay.
You want the truth? Can't handle the truth, Cam.
You won't be able to handle the truth when the stability works.
Anyway, okay, let's move on.
That's actually true. I can definitely see if it does work, Ryan will come up with a reason why the test is valid. 100%.
No, we'll agree on it beforehand, and then, like I say, we'll all have to come up with our And you don't think it works either, Cam? So
I don't, but if it's shown, I've not seen evidence that it works. But if I'm, if we're coming up, Cam's coming up with evidence that it does, then, fair game.
Again, it's just going to depend what it is that we're trying to prove to determine what works and what doesn't. So,
But we'll figure that out. That's all good. Anyway, if anyone's got any suggestions, let us know because it'll be interesting to know.
And send it to all of us so Cam doesn't bury anything he thinks is going to show stability doesn't work or something.
Oh dear.
We don't really have an impartial.
Maybe we need an impartial judge. We all got too much riding on it.
Like I said, I'm talking to the guy from CChem in a few weeks' time, so we can get him to be the judge.
Well, this very obviously not impartial.
Anyway.
Okay, let's move on.
What have you had going on in the store, Cam? Have you got anything exciting going on, Cam Auckland?
Literally nothing has happened. I got some cool guppies. That's about it. Oh no, I did have one of my Oscars was not in the big tank because he got a little beaten up a while ago, so he was in another tank healing up. And I put him back, and I put him with a divider to let them calm down before I introduced them. And the plan was this was yesterday, and I was gonna remove the divider today, but I came back like 20 minutes later, and he had knocked the divider down because the suction cups weren't strong enough, and he'd knocked it down, and they're all swimming around happy as Larry without fighting, which is what I was worried about. So I was like, that's a lucky coincidence. If it had gone the other way, then that would have been bad. But no, they were all happy as just cruising along. Because the issue was he was a little bit smaller than all the other ones, so that's why he got beaten up. But he's since packed on a little bit more size, so he's a bit more like capable of defending himself should he need to. So yeah, that was basically the only interesting thing that's happened to me recently.
I'm surprised yours don't pair up and do weird stuff.
They do try, but they're probably not fully mature yet.
They're pretty big.
And
though.
actually, sorry?
They're pretty big.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be. Oscars take like they take a very long time to mature, sexually. So,
do we want to go back and edit what you just did so you can bleep it out?
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's not a big deal.
Two of them did dig a hole, and were like kind of protective, and then one of the plecos just went over and claimed the spot, and they're like, okay. guess we'll move on. And so yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Get away pretty lucky with it.
You probably don't want to actively breed Oscars anyway, right? Because
Oh, I definitely don't.
already,
Especially in
there's probably already so many of them out there that need rescuing, let alone more to be
Yeah.
bred and sold.
even if they did spawn in that tank, then the biche is just going to eat them all, and nothing's going to be able to grow up. So I'm not too worried, but I'm just worried about the aggression if they do. But so far, so good.
I always thought that breeding Oscars would be a really fun project, not to breed en masse, because obviously you're going to produce hundreds, but to then find a couple of traits that you're trying to work towards, because it take a lot of time, but you could be responsible for something that's quite a cool fish at the end of it, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, man.
one that's way more mosaic than others, or just a totally jet black or something like that. Like it'd take a long period of time, and you'd have to work through a lot of stuff.
It's like a 5 to 10 year project and 30 or 40 tanks.
Yeah. Like
And thousands of fish.
But it'd be
You just need a big ass pond to chuck them all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Just
that's
a
good.
massive
You know,
Oscar pond, like in the States.
Oscars aren't as. There's a lot of people that keep them wrong, like in 2 little tanks and that. But there is also a lot of people with big tanks, because it's one of the most popular ones.
We need to look at the subject for today before you get too far into that one.
Oh, what a fantastic segue! You're getting the hang of this
nicely
podcasting
into the
thing.
next conversation.
So what is the topic? What do we call it? Oh yeah. So the main topic for today's video is our top. I don't know, top 3, top 5, depends how much time we get. Misunderstood fish. Top 1, top 0.
Yeah.
But the top misunderstood fish in the aquarium hobby. So that can be, the criteria kind of can be whatever you want it to be, in that, like, whatever that prompt makes you think of, in more of like a, not necessarily like a mistreated mold, but like misunderstood, as in like the fish isn't how it's portrayed or whatever like that. So
they've got like a cliche, or they've got a stereotype to them, which isn't true.
yeah, pretty much like fish racism.
Fish racism.
Yeah,
is
pretty
that a
much.
thing?
So, well,
You don't
I
want to
just
be
coined
fishophobic.
it. So
Fishophobic?
you don't want to be racist to the fish. So like, whatever false stereotypes you can think of in the realm of fish.
So like,
go to
I
town.
don't want to keep African cichlids. Does that make me fish phobic? Or
Nah, it just makes you wrong.
It's funny because it's
so-
true.
Who wants to go
away.
first?
You go first, because you were segueing with
To
your
be honest, the inbred one and myself are struggling with the subject, so we're going to make Cam Auckland do a lot of the work, and then we're going to get some inspiration from him. So
Yeah.
So we're gonna do what we normally do for this podcast, and I'll do everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
you can carry us. Go
Sounds
carry us.
good.
You do the work, and we'll get the Ferraris.
Sounds good. Well, my no, so this is number 1. There's no ranking. It's just like the first one I had on my list, and so the first one is to do with what Ryan's fantastic segue was. Is Oscars are very, very misunderstood in the personality wise. So
what's the misunderstanding? Are we going to state the misunderstanding first?
if you let me fucking finish talking, I'll tell you. So that was literally my next sentence. So
Okay.
Oscars,
So what is it gonna be?
if you like, can you
What are you going to say about
just
Oscars?
shut up? Breathe. Oscars are portrayed as like these big, like super aggressive, like predator, like big ugly brutes, like the bogeyman kind of thing, like super tough and violent, and they'll like just shred everything, like super aggressive in that. And that is very, very false in my opinion. They will be aggressive in the sense that, like, if you put a bunch of like tiny little fish in there, they'll eat them and like if you put something else aggressive, they'll fight with it. And if you have like, if an Oscar is stressed, it'll fight. But I mean, that's the same as any fish. It's just with a bigger fish, it's easier to see, probably. But like a happy and established and mature Oscar is like, they're super, super docile. They're super calm. They're like placid as. They're just more kind of content, just like doing their own thing, digging their little hole, cruising around, whatever, rather than like, oh yeah, I'm going to just kill this Severum because I just am a piece of crap. It's like, nah, not true at all. They're just much rather just do their own thing and keep to themselves. I find when it comes to Oscars, you have much more trouble with things beating them up. When they're all happy in that, you have much more trouble with things being aggressive towards them than them doing anything sort of violent. If you're keeping multiple...
They're probably because people think they're aggressive, so they stick them with like Midas and Flowerhorn and things like that, and they just get smashed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even like, I had a little Geotapos that was probably like 10 centimeters that was beating up my like 25 centimeter Oscar, just like for no reason. And the Oscar just like, it would fight back, but it was like, you could tell he just didn't want to. He just wanted to, he had a little house made out of rocks. He just like wanted to live in his little rock house and like dig his hole and stuff. And it's really sad, I think, because you don't get the best out of them in that situation when they're real stressed or angry or whatever, because that's not how they really behave. They are very placid, calm fish. They don't really eat other fish. They're not like a predator fish. They'd much rather get a bunch of earthworms than like a bunch of guppies kind of thing for their dinner. So yeah, that's my first one. But bottom line is they're still fantastic fish and everyone should keep them. But if you've got enough room and if you want something like super aggressive in that, get like a Midas or a Flowerhorn or something that's like, or a Green Terror. Like there's plenty of other things that are like nutcases that if you want something like big and aggressive in that will be a much more better option than an Oscar that'll just be placid basically. So yeah.
And so you're kind of saying that, I mean, Oscars are very common in the hobby. Yeah, probably too common. But I've seen so many in really tiny tanks and stuff, and that's probably where they're going to cause the biggest issues because they're just stressed out and they're going to eat everything if you put small stuff with them, right?
It's not, yes, but in a more general sense, just if they're stressed. So like the most common one is going to be small tanks, but it's not necessarily a small tank. If they're in with a bunch of Mbuna, they're going to be stressed out. If, their water parameters are all out of whack, then they're going to be stressed out. Like, whatever it is to cause that is going to be enough to make them more stressed out and more, like, skittish and jumpy and, like, just generally on edge. Like, if you think about for a human in a situation where, like, there's not enough room or, like, it's too crowded or, like, with all a bunch of people that they hate and all this kind of thing, it's going to be on edge.
It's a bit on this podcast sometimes.
I'm going to let that one drift down the river and not touch that.
I'm imagining Oscars being like My Chemical Romance or Fallout Boy, just being really emo, and that's the way you're describing it to me now. Is that about right then?
My Chemical Romance and Fallout Boy is a bit before my time, but sure.
Oh, right. Sorry, Mr. I'm born in 2015.
Given the second part, kind of, yeah. You do still get much like very outgoing ones and like very, splashy ones and whatever, but not like there's a difference between that and like the, piranha kind of vibe that they get portrayed as.
Do you want to hear a funny story about? Sorry, you want to hear a funny story about Oscars and splashy?
No.
It's funny. You'll enjoy it.
I'm joking. Of course, I want to hear
it. Tell the story. Go.
It is a podcast. This is exactly what we do.
All right.
Tell stories.
I had a couple of big Oscars and a big tank, and I was catching them, moved them one day. It was a Friday afternoon. I very clearly remember it was a Friday afternoon, which is important for the story. So I caught this Oscar, and it was so splashy. It poured this water everywhere, right into the middle of my Sky Dakota, and blew my skybox for the weekend. It was winter, so I couldn't watch my beloved Warriors. I couldn't watch any sport.
It saved you from watching them lose, so you're all good.
It would have been in a losing year.
It's an act of mercy.
Any sport.
Yeah,
So
that's so funny. I like that. That's good.
My story about Oscars and being splashy. So I lost my Sky for the entire weekend because the damn Oscar splashed water into it.
Down your way, isn't Sky just sitting outside and looking up?
Ha ha ha! How's your windshield wipers? Have you found out who stole them?
Actually, so after we record this, I have to go get a warrant for the van, and I am very much bricking it because I think this is going to cost me a lot of money. But let's see how we go. I'll give the update on the podcast next time. But I'm hoping the wipers isn't one of the things that's on the list of.
I don't know if you need a rear wiper.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting to see.
But I don't know if
you need water in your washer bottle. I'm sure you need a wiper.
Because no, I don't think you need a rear wiper. You definitely don't need a rear wiper because I've had cars that don't have them. But I don't know if it's.
Stolen. Hey!
Shut up. If you're equipped with a rear wiper, then I don't know if you need a rear wiper if you're already equipped for it. It's just if you're not equipped for it, I don't know.
The WAF rules appear to outline windscreen requirements, but no requirement for the rear window with regards to rear wiper/washer system.
Well, there you go.
Oh, fingers
you don't
crossed.
have to have a rear wiper. There you go. So,
but if I have a rear wiper fitting, does it need something attached to it?
It looks like you don't need one.
All right. Well, I guess it would just be tires and bloody something else.
Rust.
I think the rust. I think the fan belts had it.
That won't fall off. It'll just cook the engine. Anyway, okay, back to Oscars. I wanted to ask you a question.
This is not a mechanic podcast.
Yeah. They seem to be having, if it was, we'd be stuffed. I'd be doing a lot more talking than you guys. But anyway.
And I would not contribute anything except for jokes about Nelson.
Yeah, which is still good. But hole in the head, they seem to be prone to hole in the head. I've seen a lot of stuff with them on the internet with hole in the head. Is this because people just don't look after them properly? Or like they're in small tanks and just get manky water and, all that sort of stuff? Or what?
Feed them too many guppies.
That's just a water quality thing. I've never had one I've rescued ones that have had hole in the head, but keeping good water in there, I've never had them just develop it out of the blue or anything like that. And even if they do develop it, it's very easy to fix with, just like clean water and a bit of thingamajig that I can't remember the name of, methylene blue in there, and it will. Yeah. No, don't even need it. Just because I've had it one time get infected. I think it was infected, so the methylene blue cleaned that out. But just the actual clean water and stuff, just clean water space, nothing beating it up and nipping at it and some time. Obviously, it takes some time, but comes back to life, no worries.
I thought Metro was the only thing that dealt with hole in the head because it's some sort of a parasite or bacteria, isn't it?
I think it's bacterial off the top of my head. But
phlebitis or something, I'm sure.
You what? Sorry.
Like a Hexmida and flagellates or whatever they are. Yeah.
Flagellates, isn't it? Yeah. But for what I've never dealt with it super difficult, but from what I've seen, if it's if you make the fish healthy and stuff again, then it's able to just deal with it. Its immune system's able to deal with it without a major trouble. Although, potentially I've never had it super major, of course, but that's what I've sort of seen. And clean water, they definitely don't develop it just randomly for no apparent reason. So
there you go.
But that would be my most misunderstood fish, for sure. So, do you guys have any suggestions, or would you
I've
like
never
me to
kept
go
Oscars, so I can't really comment. I've just seen your ones. They just
cool.
They do look real gentle and just cruising around. Yeah,
they're one that I think everyone should keep. obviously with the caveat, like if you've got enough space and everything, but like they're so much fun. They're so cool. So what
You
more
should probably
could you want?
quickly just follow with what you'd recommend as a minimum for Oscars, just as a quick, if you're telling people they're misunderstood, what would you say? So someone's like, hey, these sound real cool. What size tank do I need?
So the general like I don't know, guideline that you'll see if you're like looking on the internet and that is like a 4-foot tank, which would be like maybe 275 liters or what do they call it, 75 gallons. That's probably the
So that's a big 4 foot,
minimum.
right? That's not a small 4 foot.
No, that is a small 4 foot. It's only 45 centimeters front to back. So
Okay, yeah.
that's what you'll see usually. But in my opinion, I think that's too small. What I would say is I would do like a 5x2x2, which is if I do
150, 60,
that would
60.
be like, 150, 60,
540,
60.
540 liters, yeah.
Yeah, but over
500
like
liters.
around 500 liters, about 120 something gallons. I think that's really what you want to get the most out of them. Gives you a lot more room for just like if you want to add 1 or 2 other fish, if you want to not have to be as stressed about water quality, if you want to give them enough room to actually be active instead of just sit there, that would be what I'd suggest would be your kind of target size wise, and then obviously bigger is always better, but that would be kind of the minimum I would think of.
So what people often say, I want to get my fish some friends because he's lonely. Can you do like one Oscar in a big 4 foot, like a 4x2x2 type thing? Could you do one Oscar on his own and him just be your water puppy and just chill with him and play games with him and stuff, or would he be depressed?
No, they'll be fine. I mean, I always say like with them, it's good to like have stuff happening. So like that is like a lot of people use like, I don't know, a feather fin, for example, and he's like interacting with that. But like maybe it's like you just change up the environment sometimes, or like feed it treats or like whatever. But they also are good at entertaining themselves. Like they'll go dig a hole or move a piece of wood or something like that as well.
Or
I really wouldn't.
heater.
Yeah,
Will
pretty much.
Heaters?
Yeah, if they get the opportunity to, they would. Chuck a heater protector on that,
Heater
or
guards,
get a
yeah.
sump and keep it out the way. But yeah, they are good. I wouldn't stress too much, but what I find is like because they're like a pet for people. Like people go like above and beyond. Like I'll set up a worm farm in my garden just for him, so I can have worms to feed him, and like, I just buy him new decorations every month or two because I just want to change it up. Like, here's a new plant. We'll give you a new little wood thing to kick around, or people get like even just like little like decorations and that. Like I don't know, like a little. Why can't I think of an example? But like rocks or something, like smaller rocks. Yeah, and they just kick it around and like move it around and stuff, and like they dig hole and everything like that. So they are fun like that. They kind of just do
for them to play with, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I tried that with my mom once, and he just couldn't care less. I don't think he like looked at it for like 3 seconds, and then that was the entire experience. So if yours like it, they like it. Mine could not care less. It floated around in there for like 6 months, and nothing happened, so I got rid of it. So yeah, but if they like it, but yeah.
All right, all about Oscars. We're just going to change the subject of the pod.
You also sometimes get ones that like pats, so that's funny. I've had ones that just like getting patted on the side and that. So yeah, that's a good time. But yeah, so who wants to go next with their non-Oscar related subject? Preferably.
Well, my one's going to be fairly obvious. Cam, have you got something?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Oh, you've got a couple now. Damn.
Yeah, well, I had a couple last night as well. I can go completely the stark opposite of Oscars and go neon tetras. I think that they don't get kept in the right environment, so they get the title of being basically shit fish and picking up neon tetra disease and all that kind of stuff. But I've found in my experience when they're kept in softer, cleaner water, lower pH, and get fed a decent variety of live foods, that they're actually really, really hardy and get quite vibrant compared to when they're putting a group of 3 into a 45-litre tank with a whole bunch of things that shouldn't be together.
So
I think,
what would you say would be like the ideal situation for them then? Like tank wise and like setup wise and tank mate wise and all the
so
wises.
if you stick them into like a botanical type aquarium with like stained water, lots of wood and leaf litter and stuff like that, they do a heck of a lot better when they're in those bright, crystal clear type environments. So with the slightly more dull lights. Tank mate wise, some of the corridors go really well with them. Autosynclists and stuff like that go well with them. Ones that prefer the slightly cooler water like the neons go fairly well. Nothing too aggressive. Other tetras for the best part go well with them as well, most of them. And then decent feedings of like microworms and white worms, daphnias, brine shrimps, that sort of stuff, and they go really well. And yeah, I don't believe that they are a good beginner fish option, because for that reason they don't get put where they need to get put, and they end up dying and get disease and stuff like that, and then get considered a bad fish. But when they're given the conditions they need, they go really well.
So you think that there's still healthy, strong fish coming through? We're just putting them in the wrong environment. Is that what you're saying? Or
I think they would be more. They would go better. I don't think that they are not prone to some things because they are mass produced, but I think the longevity and the general health of them goes better when they're given what they actually want, as opposed to given what we want to give them, if that makes sense.
I'm just thinking back to your when you started off with 20 and ended up with 3 or 4 or something. And those 3 or 4 might be good, and you might be able to get them in a good environment, but it still makes them bloody hard work if you got to buy 100 to get 20. You know,
that can happen with any fish after transit. Like,
and it does depend on the environment they were kept in, and da 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 da.
Yeah, I've had lots of fish that have turned up looking good, and then within the next 3 or 4 days, they've all gone upside down, and then the next lot have come through being absolutely fine. And I think because I don't think we put enough emphasis on stress from traveling with fish, and a lot of stuff can go down to that, and I think that's probably what happened with them. This almost feels like a bit of an potential isolated thing with that particular batch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so your thing is because to me, I'd call them a shit fish, because the beginners seem to buy them and they just seem to always die. And it's probably, you're saying it's because they're, and I've always thought it's because they're mass produced, they're weak fish, and they're probably coming in poor condition, and they're just only very short lived. You're just setting people up by selling them to them, basically, is what I've always thought. But you're saying that if people bought them and they put them in like a pH of real low, like 6 or something, and some soft water with some tannins and decent food and all that sort of stuff, that'd be a lot better. But they're not a very good beginner fish.
They're absolutely not a good beginner fish.
From what it sounds like you're saying just that they're more sensitive than sort of they're given credit for in
That's
general to water quality and like food and like stress and all this other stuff. Whereas it's kind of presented as though they're the bulletproof, like platies, for example, of the tetra world.
Yeah, I don't even think they're presented as bulletproof. I just think they're presented as cheap. Like,
no, they're just cheap. They're consumable. Yeah. They're marketed as a consumable thing. You go down every 6 months and replace your neons because they've expired. Correct.
And like you look at beginner type fish, or the first fish that people think of getting into tropical fish, neons would be up there and guppies would be up there. Neither of them are good options for first fish keepers, because they need far more attention or far more for conditions that generally beginner fish keepers won't give them. But if both of them are given what they actually want, they become far better pets for a far longer period of time.
What would be your alternatives to them then?
Platies for guppies, and I think lemon tetras are a good option when it comes to tetras. I think Raspora are a good option when it comes to a beginner sort of small shoaling fish. If you want to put a little bit more money into it, green neons are pretty hardy. Black neons are a great option over standard neons.
I was trying to lead you to somewhere, but you've zigged when you should have zagged. But so the one, yeah, the one that a lot of people go for is cardinals. And I used to definitely be in that boat of, if don't buy neons, buy cardinals. But I have since changed my mind. Cardinals, I find, are also a lot more finicky. Like, to get, like, once you get them settled, I think they'll be much more consistently good than a neon. But I find getting them settled is quite not the easiest, because they're always real skinny and they equally keel over when you first get them. And the other problem with them is they get a bit bigger than a neon. So a neon you can probably do in like a, I don't know, 20 to 40 liter range tank without much trouble. But a cardinal, I think you'd want a bit more. So that would be like that 1 foot range. I think for a cardinal, you'd probably want about that 2 foot range long term, plus obviously.
And so that right there is where I think people with neons go wrong, because that's a tiny tank for a neon, the group of neon tetras.
Yeah. I'm meaning more like size wise and space wise, in the sense that, like, I don't massively want to say this, but I'm going to say it. Like, the inch per gallon thing is like inches, like sizes of fish, to give them in terms of like maneuverability and that, will be fine. Obviously, bigger is better, but I think they're not going to suffer the same way in terms of cramping what cardinal would in that same environment.
Yeah, so like as a general rule, I still push cardinals over neons. But if we're talking to people that are just getting into the hobby, then I don't push either of them.
A lot of times you'll see them just be like you'll see people talking about it like just a straight swap. Like, don't even think about it, just buy this. It's exactly the same, but you'll be much more successful with it. And it's like, probably there's a better chance, but it's still not as easy, or like straight up. I'd say actually in my one I always suggest is glow lights, because glow light tetras, because like they're very similar. Like, they still got the stripe pattern, they got bright orange once they mature and everything, but you can probably shoot one and it will not even notice. Like, it'll be happy, whereas the other ones are probably a bit more,
it would probably
matters a bit more.
If those fish are a little bit more sensitive, like neons and cardinals, and you've got a beginner and their tank's probably not as established or as big, or they're probably overfeeding a little bit, and they're just kind of getting the hang of it, and they're a little bit sensitive, it's just gonna be a recipe for disaster. You do need something that's a little bit more robust. It's gonna sort of survive a little bit of the abuse that, obviously we don't want that to happen to people, to all the fish, but at the end of the day, we'll go through a learning curve and we figure out how much to feed and how much to water change.
Exactly.
And, all that.
And I mean, we
stuff,
talked about it before, like with your, sorry to bring it up again, but with your Tropheus, it's like mistakes happen. Oh my God.
Where's he going? There he is.
Oh no. Okay, the podcast feed just dropped. But what I was saying is, like, we talked about it with the Tropheus, is like mistakes happen, and it's just like the more hardy fish give you more sort of wiggle room for mistakes, where it's not going to ruin your entire tank.
It's keeping experience either.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, that's a good one. So what do you got?
It's not one I've got a lot of experience with, but that's all right. I'm going to go with I want to say African cichlids in general, but it's too generic, right? So I'm going to go with Mambuna as a side sort of African cichlid thing. So many times I see people post, "Oh, don't get Mambuna; they're aggressive. They're just going to kill everything." and then you drill into it and you find out that someone's bought like one male Mbuna that looked cool and stuck it in a tank of it's too small with the wrong fish and it's murdered everything. And you can do that all day, every day, and it'll just do it every single time. So I think it's just people. A lot of people are too scared to try African cichlids, and people who aren't really shouldn't. But if you're going to, make sure you actually do some research and do it right, and you'll be fine. You might have some problems, little problems, but you have problems with all fish sometimes, But generally, if you start off with good numbers in the right size tank and the right food, you're gonna be off to a way better start than if you just buy one pretty fish and bung it in a tank of whatever and hope for the best.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing with African cichlids in general, but probably Mbuna more than other things, is you can't really dip your toe in. Just getting one or two is not gonna is just gonna fight basically and kill each other. But if you get like 20, they'll be fine. So it is a little bit challenging in that regard. But yeah, I think Mbuna is one that definitely is not. And yeah, I mean, misunderstood, misrepresented, unappreciated. It would all be fitting words, but like we definitely don't get the most out of Mbuna that they have to offer. I mean, if you're listening, we can only really talk about New Zealand because we're all from New Zealand, so that's what we know. But like, I'm going to go with in general probably, but definitely in New Zealand we don't get the most out of them because it's like the thing with them is like an Mbuna is not necessarily an Mbuna, like a electric yellow is a very different fish to like an Auratus. Like an Auratus kind of nuts and like might be okay, but there's probably going to be violence. But like a yellow is like very, very calm, very chill, not going to really cause any trouble. So you kind of got to, it's a little bit harder, whereas like, obviously this is an oversimplification and not necessarily true, but like for the most part, a tetra is a tetra, but an Mbuna is not an Mbuna. And with their sort of ability to size-wise and, physiology-wise to actually do some damage, whereas like a tetra, even if it's mad, isn't going to do as much damage as fast. So yeah, I definitely agree that we don't sort of appreciate or get the most out of our Mbuna because they're just not kept right. I'm not a fan of mixing them with peacocks and haps, and it can be done, but I'm not a massive fan. Americans don't go well with that kind of thing. So yeah.
Do you think, and hear me out before you both yell at me?
I would never.
You would never hear me out before you yell at me?
Yeah, well, probably both, but you know what I mean.
Do you think that there is an argument that Mbuna, or maybe African cichlids, but Mbuna shouldn't be in the hobby at all because too often they're kept, people will buy one or two, or they'll put them in with their guppies because for whatever reason, or they get put into a 2-foot tank and they beat the crap out of each other, or get put into tanks that they shouldn't be in, and they cause so much issue that way?
I mean, you can argue whatever you want.
You know where I'm going.
You could go the same way. You could go the same way with angels. You could go the same way with Oscars. You could go the same way with every single fish. But the problem is we just need more education around them. That's the thing. Like I see them in whatever big stores, and they're happily selling people cool, nice coloured up male Demosones, single male Demosones for random tanks. And I'm just like, it's going to kill everything. A cichlid is not a cichlid. It shouldn't just be kept with random cichlids, But it's what they're doing and what they don't understand, So I think it's more understanding. People have more success if they have education and actually have a bit more around it. Same with all fish.
The problem goes back to what I was saying before, is like you can't really dip your toe in. And so that goes for like a hobbyist perspective, but also from a retailer perspective is like you can't really just have like, oh yeah, we got like 3 assorted African tanks sitting there and we just sell out of them, just assorted cichlid, because they're so different. Like we talk about it all the time, but like frontosis is not the same as an Mbuna, which is not the same as, the difference between an Auratus and a yellow lab, which is different to a venustus, etc. It's like you kind of need a bit more. It's very, very, I'm going to say impossible, but anything's possible, but it's very difficult to be a casual African cichlid person, be it a seller or a hobbyist, because there's a lot more kind of going on, and there's a lot more like writing on it, I guess. Like if you put, you know, what's an example? If you put silver-tipped tetras, which is super nippy, with angelfish, it's not going to end well, but it's going to not like die in 2 days. Whereas like you put a Auratus with an angelfish, it'll last 5 minutes before something dies, you know?
That's my point though. Like
no, but that's kind of what I maybe I didn't explain it right, but it's an education thing, and maybe there's
responsible.
Well,
we've got to be more responsible with them if we're selling them.
So where does that
sellers that was what? Sorry,
where does that start? Does that start at the wholesaler telling the retailer that this is what's going to happen, you should do this? Does it start at the retailer who should already know better but they don't, telling the customer? Should it be the breeder that's bred it to the customer, or the other hobbyist? Like there's a big chain.
I think that's a bit of a I don't know what that word is, but like I don't think that's maybe the right way to think about it. I think it's one of those ones where like everyone has to do better. If you're involved, then we have to do better. Like I obviously, if you're listening, you probably know, but like I sell a lot of Africans, and like I'll be the first to admit there's stuff I should do better. Like I can't really think of examples because I'm on the spot, but like even if I think I'm doing the best possible, I'm sure there's stuff that like gets missed or like misunderstood. But there's like stuff that gets missed or misunderstood or like misinterpreted or whatever. And so I need to do better. Like importers needs to do better, breeders needs to do better, individual hobbyists needs to do better. Like everybody, if you're involved, we need to be trying to make it as sort of easy to understand and get the information out there, and listening to different things and like all this kind of thing to make sure that it gets there. I think just flatly saying they shouldn't be in the hobby is, I don't think that's sort of correct, because
it's a bit of a cop out, really.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I could make that argument about like probably every single fish. There's always something.
So we've got an empty fish. Still got an empty fish shop then, and no fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is, I guess the hardest part is what is the rule? You know, like there's no, you know, like we know what the law is. We know how fast we should drive, so it's really easy to educate people on that. But with African cichlids, like you go on a forum or you go on a Facebook page and someone's put something in the wrong tank and it's lasted for 2 minutes, and I've kept them together, they're fine, and then so that becomes, oh, okay, that's all good. I've done it. That person did it. They've got success. All good, you know. And they've usually got juvenile fish or whatever, or they're just lucky for this month of keeping them together. So that's the hardest part too, is finding the right information when you reach out to the internet, and a lot of it's wrong, you know.
That's why I was saying I don't think it is a black and white issue of
it's not
right and wrong. It's everybody should do the best they can. Like I'm sure if you ask me in 10 years or play me back this what are we doing, a podcast, I'll be like, oh, Cam 10 years ago was so wrong about this and this. Yeah. It's like, oh, we have this new discovery about X thing that makes everything he was saying invalid, and you know he actually did.
We're evolving.
Yeah, he did this wrong, and like that is, you know, only works in very specific situations and that. So it's not like I will do it and I'll be right and that's the end of it. It's every day, every single time, just trying to do what we can with the knowledge we have about making things better. And that applies to any fish. I'm not talking about African cichlids here. I could be talking about angelfish, could be talking about fancy plecos, could be talking about dogs, you know, with anything. This is getting a bit lifey for me, but you know, I feel like Gary V right now, but you know, that's kind of what I was thinking about. So yeah, Whew,
Yeah,
I got fired up again.
so
Need to breathe.
That was a pretty mild fired up.
In my heart, I can feel my heart racing. Maybe it's just too much caffeine.
I guess I'm sitting on the fence on both ways, if that makes sense. Like,
No.
there's a group of fish that cause a lot of issues on a regular basis. Is it a good thing? There needs to be more work put into them. That is a good thing. Like, I'm kind of on the fence on them.
Yeah. I don't think just saying they shouldn't be in the hobby is the answer, for the simple reason that there's reasons everything shouldn't be around. Like, I could make an argument about guppies. I could make an argument about, why can't I think of another fish? Like, Oscars, can make an argument about clown loaches, about whatever. Obviously, the arguments are different, but the same overall idea.
And it'd be like saying, "Oh, people crash their cars, so we should just get rid of cars because cars are bad, and no one can use them right."
Exactly.
Because some people do it wrong, But anyway,
it's the whole thing about some idiot ruined it for everybody by running over a family. Well, that was a bit grim. Should have said that. But car crash is not good.
Doing dumb stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just think.
Or even
it's
hold on.
Sorry.
Not even necessarily doing dumb stuff. Is like trying to do the right thing, but getting incorrect information or whatever. Plenty of people trying to do the right thing, but just it's hard to know what is right and what is wrong. It's just a thing of got to do the best we can,
And that's the hard part, is figuring out the right information, because you can Google it. Should I keep a Demosonia with my community fish, and scroll through internet until you find enough pages that say you should, and just do it and be justified in that. Enough pages said you could.
Yeah, so man. And I mean, who's to say we're right? Like, we think we're right.
I only know what I know based on experience and what I've done and what I've seen and tried, which is probably more than a lot of people. But
in 10 years, you might have more experience that invalidates everything we just said. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I agree.
Only time will tell.
Anyway, that's my one. Who's got the next one?
Cam, I think, isn't it?
No, he did neons. You did Oscars. I did them.
Oh,
you again. Yeah.
I guess it's me, yeah. So my next one for the top, what is it called? Misunderstood fish is... see, this is hard because I've probably only got time for one more. And so I got to choose
maybe just do some quick fire ones. Like, you can just do, say your fish and then your statement and move on. And we go agree or not agree.
So, coolie loaches are actually very active and very out and about and very visible in that if they're kept in a big enough group in the right sort of environment to keep them happy.
Okay, I haven't had any experience in this, so I'm going to say I'm neutral on this. Cam, what do you reckon?
I agree and disagree. I've kept pretty big groups. I've kept pretty big groups of them and never seen them, and then I've kept pretty good sized groups of them and seen them relatively regularly. So I'm kind of neither here nor there on that. Like, I've had them in a 2-foot tank. There's about 10 of them. Total blackwater tank.
It's supposed to be quick fire. This is supposed to be quick fire. It's not supposed to be story.
We don't want to do. No, we don't want to do too quick fire. Maybe we'll do like slightly shorter.
So what you're saying is you've seen them in the right environment. They can be really active.
Yeah, and then I've seen them in bigger numbers in a big tank with still lots of hiding holes, lots of wood, lots of plants, and never seen them in bigger groups. So like I'm impartial. I'm not 100% sure.
All right. What's your suggestion then? It does make sense.
Yeah. Not a fish per se, but I think the misrepresentation or the misunderstood keeping fish in a group of 6 is the best way of doing it. I think is rubbish.
I agree. I think it very much depends on the fish that we're talking about.
Yeah, and determine on tank size.
Yeah.
Like 6 fish in a 20-foot tank ain't going to do nothing, but 6 fish in a 2-foot tank probably will, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's, a silver tip tetra, if you keep 6, they're just going to kill everything. But if you keep 6 glow lights, they'll be happy as and do their thing. So it really
probably going
depends.
to end up with 1 or 2. 6 widow tetras might end up with a couple left because of those reasons as well. But when it depends on the fish and depends on the size of the tank you got and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Wandered off. So
I agree with that. I agree with that too.
Bad.
No, I'm good. I was just cooking some eggs for my son. I agree with that one too. It's about fish. It's case by case, right? So my next one was what was my next one? Oh, my next one was just a generic statement that cichlids are cichlids and can all be kept together, which some shops use as their motto when selling cichlids. They go, everything in that area of the shop is a cichlid, and they can all be kept together. They're all cichlids, and you end up just buying an assortment of random stuff.
I feel you.
So,
I feel you.
That's one of my misunderstandings and biggest bugbears of the whole sort of thing, especially some of the big box stores. And I get they're trying to be responsible by not.
We can't really hear you because you've walked away.
I'm on my microphone, on my headset, so it should be on here.
it isn't.
It went away, did it?
Yeah, you went quiet, which was great.
Okay, my microphone must be doing something weird. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm here now. But what I was saying was they're trying to be responsible by starting to say, hey, cichlids should be killed with cichlids, not with, like tetras and guppies and stuff, because they'll kill them. But they're not actually going to that next level of sort of defining it a little bit more. So that was my thing.
Yeah, fair. I agree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think because you've touched on it, we have to talk about clown loaches too.
All right. What's your clown loaches thing?
I don't think that they are a fantastic option for eating snails because they get ridiculously big and they need to be kept in groups because they're very social. And there is a better option. I think dwarf chain loaches are a far better option than what clown loaches are. And
that's funny because this is going to run into what I was going to say next. And that was that I don't think getting loaches to eat snails is the best option in general. So, that's funny. But continue with what you're saying.
Yeah, I just think there's better options for it. I think we should be buying fish on the merits of the fish, not because they can do this and this and this for us. If that makes sense. There's better option with clown loaches to using dwarf chain loaches if that's the reasoning you're wanting. The dwarf chain loaches will clean up your snails in no time. They stay small. They're a far better option for a smaller tank, far better option for a community tank. And clown loaches, I think, need their own kind of jive going on.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, they're definitely one where the school of 6 thing is not going to cut it. Volume.
I've had 2 clown loaches by themselves in a 3-foot tank for so long, and they're absolutely fine together, and they're half the size of the pen, and they should be 4 times the size of that pen.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll just sit there and never do anything, etc. So, that makes sense. But no, what I was saying about the thing is, like, obviously I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but from my understanding, most loaches will only eat snails as like the result of a, food scarcity. Like they'd much prefer other stuff, like in an aquarium, fish food and that. So, and I think getting fish to solve a problem is not the best mode of attack. If you've got a snail problem, just chuck some flubendazole probably is the easiest option in there, and that'll basically. The easiest way to think of it is like the snails are allergic to it. The flubendazole is like what we use for you. What? Sorry.
It's a poison for them. Let's be real.
Yeah. But like poison, people think is going to kill everything, and it's like this is only the snails that will kill because it's a dewormer for the fish. So it's a win-win situation. So that's kind of the way I'd recommend going.
The only consideration with that, and I did it to all my tanks and it killed them all with no dramas, but if you've got a big high load, like your whole gravel is MTS, Malaysian trumpet snails, and you kill them, you've got to be watching out for just like a ammonia spike or things dying in your tank and causing dramas. So,
Yeah.
Copper also kills snails as well, but that seems to have gone out of popularity of late, using copper.
Copper's a little bit more. I
Brutal?
think it's easier for it's a bit easier for the copper to cause trouble for the fish.
Yeah.
Flu, I think you can do. I can't remember what it was. It was like up to 15 times the dose before it becomes deadly. But with copper, it's like 3 times or something. So just got to be a little bit more careful.
Copper's a little bit nastier. Eh?
I
but
think I
they'll both do
slightly
the job.
agree that loaches only eat snails when there's no other options. I think just the way that they forage and do their thing, they'll just continue to consume them, as opposed to there's a food scarcity. Like you can feed your tank till the cows come home, and the loaches will still clean up the snails, but it's only selected loaches that are really good at it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So some of the ones that aren't really that good at it will probably be eating snails on a scarcity mindset with no food around. But the ones that are good at picking them off and scavenging all day long will do it whether there's food around or not.
Yeah.
And also the problem is they only eat what they can see and what's in front of them. And as soon as you remove them, all the snails are still there and they come back.
Yeah, they're all in the
So
filter.
like they're all in the filter or they're hiding in the gravel or whatever, So they're not exactly eradicating them. They're just keeping on top of the population, which some people might like, and that's okay.
Exactly. Just, do whatever you want, basically, is the general rule.
Good yawn.
Oh,
Good
sorry,
yawn.
that was disgusting.
How dare
God, I'm
you?
so tired. Yeah, I'm so tired.
Why are you tired? You've got no
What-
kids and you're like 12.
Fair
12
enough.
years
Kind of. I have no witty comebacks for that. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Why can't I think of what I was going to say? Well, oh no, you ruined it. It's like right there. But did you have any more suggestions?
On the tip of your tongue. You won't understand that either. You're too young.
No, I don't know. Do you have any more misunderstood fish?
No, I'm kind of there. I just
Breakfast.
scratched them with the plant watches.
Oh, nice.
So Ryan's
So
clearly lost
Ryan
you
just
what we're doing.
he's checked out of the podcast already. So
He's gone.
oh, I suppose I'll do the sign off if we've got no other options. If Ryan's gone away. So yeah, thank you guys very much for listening. I hope it was a good subject for you. I quite enjoyed it. We got a lot more in depth on them than I thought we were. I think some of the
I'm back.
Too late. Some of the quickfire ones we did at the end is ones we might want to revisit and actually do the whole 20-minute discussion on each subject for. But no, that was I quite enjoyed that one. So let me know what you guys think. But otherwise, make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye.
guys. See you later.
See you all.